Hello, guys. Welcome to the show this afternoon. Now, I'm going to tell you what. I think that just a number of things in the market are coming together in my mind to tell me that all heck could be getting ready to break loose. Quite seriously. Now, what we have is some very unusual situations. We have a drop in the gold and silver price today, and a lot of you guys are sitting back right now and you're trying to make sense of this. You're thinking to yourself, hey, you know what? We've had it's very discouraging for a lot of you guys that are stackers out there. It's very discouraging indeed. But I'm going to tell you, the Fed that we have right now is not the Fed we had back when we were under the chair Janet Yellen or Ben Bernanke. It's not the same Fed. This Fed is going to react to a crisis much, much faster, and they're going to turn on their heels. They're going to change directions as soon as we start to get a crisis. And right now, the markets have been buoyed. The markets have floated upwards on incredibly oversold markets right now. The only other time in history that the market's been this oversold was in 1929, before the Great Crash. A number of things have changed, and this is why I'm doing this program. These are subtle things that a lot of people don't notice. One has been a change in direction in the bond market. But I expected this to come. I've been waiting for this. I think that the bonds right now are getting ready to turn direction, and yields are getting ready to rise. And this, we don't really need China as a trigger. This rising yields in the bond market can act as a trigger, because this market's ready to go. It's almost like, I'll tell you what it reminds me of. You ever seen these guys, these farmers, and they have these silos, and they're trying to pull a silo down? And the guy will get right out there, and he'll start chopping at the base of the silo with an axe, banging the pieces away, you know? And he'll get ready to run, because the thing's going to come down practically on top of him, you know? And sometimes they'll take the last moorings out, the last little pieces out, and the silo's ready to fall, but it doesn't go. It just sits there for a little bit. That's where we are with these markets right now. The whole thing's ready to fall, but it's just sitting there. And the least little thing can make it go at this point. Now, these bond yields rising. You got to watch this bond market, specifically the 10-year. I knew that these yields are going to start to rise again. They're starting to rise again right now. The target mark I'm looking for is 3.25% on the 10-year. And I've been looking at this for quite a while. We got up there and we touched it for a little bit. The markets are terribly shaky. Now, I should open the charts up a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just talk. But here's the thing. This might be one of the last moves down in gold and silver before gold and silver really start to take off. I'm expecting gold and silver to start to slowly take off at first, but then to pick up momentum as time goes by. I'm expecting that we're going to have the largest bull run in gold and silver that we've ever had coming up. And that's because the Fed is going to change directions when these markets turn over. All eyes are focused on the Dow Jones. And this is the marker for whether our economy is okay or not. When that thing turns over, and it's going to, and I'm expecting that it's imminent. We're on the verge, we're on the edge right now of the crisis, but what we have is we have widespread complacency right now. It's a very strange situation that we have. We had everybody watching for these things for the longest time, and now everybody is just when it's ready to collapse, when it's ready to go and roll over, everybody's went home. Nobody's paying attention anymore. I believe that when this thing rolls over, that this new Fed that we have, I'll call it new Fed because it's not the same old Fed we used to have. They're going to react, and they're going to react swiftly. I don't think they're going to let it go down to 14,000 like I thought before. I thought the market would fall all the way down to 4. And it would if they left it alone. if they didn't step in. But I believe they're going to step in. They're going to knock interest rates back down again. They're going to start new rounds of quantitative easing. They're going to quit with the quantitative tightening, and you watch the dollar roll over. They're going to do everything that they can to support the markets. But the market's going to roll over first, and it's going to be a short-lived rollover. It's going to be very severe. And then they're going to step in. The market's going to go back up again. But when they step in, they're going to have to change, not just talk. I mean, they've been talking about changing monetary policy, and they haven't done anything yet. They're going to actually do it. And when they do it, this is going to start the final slide of the U.S. dollar. Okay? We're right on the verge right now of all of this taking place. We've got trade war is getting ready to come to an end, I think. We've got the Brexit right now. And the Brexit right now is in a position where Theresa May is going to allow them to vote to extend the Brexit for another 3 months, 90 more days off into the future, basically kicking the can. But in order for her to do that, she's going to have to send that option out to all of the other 27 Eurozone members, and they're going to all have to sign off on it. Will they sign off on it? Probably yes. And so they'll give them this 90-day extension, so extending the Brexit out for another 3 months. But you know that that's going to run down. The clock's going to run down on that too, just like it ran down on this one. 90 days is not that long. And will the people of Great Britain actually allow them to do another one after that? I think not. Another extension? I think not. I think there's going to be a lot of trouble. And what are they going to be facing after that 30-day it runs out? They're going to be facing the same old thing they're facing right now, a hard Brexit. Okay, so we got that going on. Italy, around that same time period, is when Italy's going to start to get into big trouble. This money that Italy's had an infusion of, they bought $41 billion worth of bonds from Italy. That's not going to last them very long. Italy goes through a tremendous amount of money every year. That's enough to last them about 3 months. So that puts the timing of Italy coinciding with the timing of the next extension on the Brexit running out, and then facing the hard wall again of a hard Brexit. This is the way we've been going all the way along. This is why we've got so far into this, is because our political structure has been kicking the can down the road, and they've got us this far since 2008. In actuality, the system died in 2008. And it's a corpse laying on a table that's being kept alive with life support. The Fed tried to pull the life support away with quantitative tightening and whatever. It ain't going to work. The patients went into cardiac arrest now at this point. So now they're going to have to use the paddles, and they're going to have to get on there and pump more, infuse more, whatever, stimulants into the bloodstream or whatever. They're going to have to stimulate the economy and get it going again. But this time it's going to be at the cost of the dollar. Because eventually, and very soon after they start these next rounds of stimulus, the dollar is going to people are going to start to lose confidence, because the purchasing power of the dollar is going to start to fall off. Big time. And that's a snowballing effect. It just makes it go all the faster toward a hyperinflation. So it's not going to begin instantaneously as a hyperinflation like that as soon as the Fed goes into the new rounds of stimulus. It's not the way it's going to work. It's going to start with inflation. And it's going to build up steam. And as they infuse this new money into the economy, it's just like a drug user. When he gets his new hit of whatever drug he's using, he feels good for a little while. That's what the economy's going to do. These rounds of stimulus that they're going to hit it with are going to help the economy. It's going to pick things back up again. But the biggest recipient of all of this is going to be gold, going to be silver, and going to be cryptocurrencies. It's going to be the recipient of all this new money that's infused into the system. And at the same time, we're going to see the velocity of money start to pick up. Because this time, I think they're going to have to do more than just quantitative easing. or if they go with quantitative easing, they're going to have to do bigger and better than they did before. This is going to be the time when we're going to have a pickup in economic activity in the United States, while these other countries, the emerging market countries, are going to stumble along. China's going to have it harder, I think, than the United States at first. At first. Now, this is what I'm saying at first, because this stimulus of the economy, this infusion of liquidity into the economy, is now. First off, to understand this properly, you have to go back to 2008. Okay, we had the crisis. It was deflationary. The economy started to spiral into a black hole. And what did they do? They pumped all this money into the economy. They didn't pump enough, though, to stimulate the economy into a real recovery. What they created was a fake economic recovery. They did stimulate it enough where they could go out there and say we're in an economic recovery, and people bought it. They just stimulated it enough to pull us up out of the recession somewhat and keep us stumbling along until now, and they've been kicking the can down the road until now. A lot of this money's went into the stock market. That's why the stock market's so high. All the problems of 2008 were never fixed. They were papered over with a lot of money. This is the problem we face now. This is why this crisis is going to be worse than 2008. But this crisis is going to be short-lived because they're going to do exactly the same thing as they did back in 2008. They're going to paper it over again with a lot more money this time. And this is what's going to lead to the demise of the dollar, because the dollar's already been weakened. It's like the silo, the farmer. He's already weakened the silo. He's already knocked a lot of the blocks out from under it. China's knocked a lot of the blocks out from underneath the dollar. They've been over there, and they've been sabotaging the dollar with yuan oil's futures contracts. They've been establishing banks to bypass the Western banking system that simulate the World Bank and everything else. They've been over there, and they've been working with Russia to accumulate gold that they plan on using as a financial weapon when this crisis comes. And yes, they know this crisis is coming. And this is why they've been buying so much gold for such a long period of time. When the time comes, China's going to, and Russia's going to work together, and they're going to reestablish a new price for gold. And they're just going to go like this at all of us and say, if you guys got any gold, sell it to us. And we don't have that much. Fort Knox is, who knows what's in there? Is it gold? They won't let us see it. Why? Why won't they show it to us? The only one they let in was the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin or whatever, and he could have saw anything. They could have taken him in there and showed him a bunch of spray painted blocks of lead that were spray painted with gold fleck paint, and he wouldn't know the difference. For crying out loud, how hard would it be for them to do that? There's never been an accounting of how much gold we actually have. And China's lying about how much they have. I think they said they have like 1,600 tons or something. They probably got 24,000 tons. And Russia's probably got just as much. That's where all the gold is. It all went east. For years there. The people that we put in charge of our gold, you know what they were doing? They were doing something called rehypothecation. And they were doing something called selling the gold out on lease. And how this argument works is, they're put in charge of the gold because they're elected officials that are put in charge of the gold. Basically what they say is, okay, it's going to be a lot cheaper for us as a country if we take this gold we have here, and instead of storing it in our vaults, which costs X amount per year, if we sell it into the open market, right now while the price is high, we bring the price down, and then later we'll buy it back at a lower price when it's cheaper. Right? So they sell all that gold into the open market in these big bars, like the Queen's gold, I think is 400-ounce bars, You know, they sell it into the open market. Tons of it. Tons and tons of it. And the Chinese have been buying it all up and resmelting it into 1 kilogram sized bars that they're putting away in their vault. And this has been going on for years. Okay? Do you really believe that the Chinese are going to actually let them have that gold back at cheap prices? The Chinese are going to say to themselves, hey, you know what? This lease is expiring now. You guys got to buy your gold back. We got it. We got the gold. You guys want to buy it back. And they're going to say, well, you guys got a printing press, right? You can print as much money as you want. And by law, you got to replace this gold that you sold on lease. And they're going to rub their hands together like this. And you got a printing press, huh? And you can print as much money as you want. This is what we're facing. These guys, they expected that they were going to buy it all back cheaper than they sold it for. This is what the whole crazy plan was about. And so they shipped it all east. And they've been doing stuff like this all along. But you know what they do at the same time? They sign the lease agreement to lease the gold out and sell it onto the open market, and it goes over to China. Then a whole big lump of money comes in because they just sold gold. And, you know, gold's expensive. Even when it's cheap, it's expensive. Okay? So they get all this big lump of money in, and then they can use that money for whatever they want to use it for. You know how politicians are. You pat my back, I'll pat yours. They play us for idiots. They think we're a bunch of idiots. So China's putting all of their bets on gold. Meanwhile, they've known this for a long time. They've known that China's going to use gold as a weapon, a financial weapon when the crisis comes. They know the crisis is inevitable. The people in power, they know the crisis is inevitable because they know that we can't keep expanding the debt exponentially forever. I mean, we're so stupid here, us people that are in the trenches, we think that they can just expand the debt to the moon forever and ever and ever. And it'll never end. Just keep going $1 trillion a year over budget or whatever, and who cares? That's what we think. That's what we think because that's what we've been led to believe. It's not really that we're stupid. We're not really stupid. It's just that that's what we've been led to believe. They know. They know there's a crisis coming. But they figured to themselves, well, the crisis is about, like, this is the way they figured when they were leasing this gold out. They're saying to themselves, well, I got 4 more years in office, you know, and by the time the lease expires on the gold, like 8 years from now or whatever, I won't even be here anymore, and the crisis is probably 4 years away, and I ain't going to worry about it. And you know, the bankers are doing the same thing with your money. You're putting your money in these individual retirement savings accounts and stuff like that, right? And the bankers are getting this huge lumps of money coming in. They write on your balance sheet how much you're going to have when you're like 65 or 70. And it shows you're going to have like $2 million and you're all excited. If I keep putting in whatever I'm putting in, by the time I get 65, I'll have $1.3 million, it says here. And you watch your account growing day by day with compounding interest or whatever. Right? Those are all numbers written on paper. Or written on a computer screen at the bank. Where's the real money that you've been putting in? You know where it is? They've been spending it. Because they know that by the time you get ready to retire, when you turn 65, they're not even going to be working at their job anymore. The guys that have charge of that money. And so what do? They spend that money off. They don't care. They just, all of this tallying up is all done on paper. It's all done on computer. And the real money has been spent. It's a hollow reed. So you guys are sitting there waiting for this retirement money. You say, okay, I got 15 more years and I'll have this big lump of money. It's already been spent. What they worry about, they keep a little bit on hand, like maybe 25% of it, or 20% of it on hand, in case they get the occasional fella that comes in early and wants the money early, or for the people that are already turning 65 or whatever, the first guys. It's an enormous Ponzi scheme, and they're off there building swimming pools that look like banjo-shaped swimming pools in back of their house in the Hamptons. While you're sitting there suffering every week to scramble to get that little bit extra money that you're trying to save to put into these individual retirement accounts. That's what's going on, stuff like this. And we're not aware of it because they're doing all this behind the scenes. But what it's doing is it's eroding away at the system bit by bit. And now the system is like a whole big block of ice where all of the under parts have all melted out from underneath it. And it's just suspended on nothing but thin air. So when it all collapses, it's all going to come down. The whole thing. And the Fed that we have in there now is not going to let it fully collapse like that. When they see a crack developing, a huge crack, they're going to run out there and they're going to fix it with money. But what is going to break is going to be the dollar. Because when the dollar starts to sufficiently gain more inflation than people can stand, people start to go out and spend again. Because they see that their money doesn't have any purchasing power anymore. And they say to themselves, hey, you know what? Prices are going up so fast right now that I better get out there and buy that new car. So these are people that are savers. They got the money to buy a new car, pay for it all with cash. They got the money. But the problem is these are hoarders. Basically, they're hoarders of money. And they're out there. There's billions and trillions of dollars being hoarded in accounts, being held. And this is why the velocity of money is so slow right now and so low. The velocity of money is because all of this money that's being held back right now, that's because people are scared. They're scared to spend. And the U.S. dollar index has been going up. And right now, the economic times are hard and they're scared to spend. But when this whole thing starts to pick up and it starts to gain speed and steam, these people that have been hoarding, saving their money back, they're going to say, hey, you know what? Inflation's running away. I better get out and spend this money and buy something. I better chase some real goods. I better chase some real services and do it fast or my money's not going to be worth nothing. And so what happens is all of this money that's been sitting on the sidelines starts to float into the general economy, and you get an economic pickup, a boost. You get good times. This is what causes a hyperinflation. So it's not an economic slowdown. If you're out there and you're saying, well, look at all these stores, all these retail stores closing, and look at all these jobs, and people are out of work, and all blah, 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 and now we're going to have a hyperinflation. No. You're having deflation then. You're having a depression. That's a depression. That's a recession. That's a depression. That's not a hyperinflation. What causes a hyperinflation is when the economy actually starts to really pick up and heat up. And inflation starts to heat up with it first, too. So first comes inflation, not hyperinflation. The first sign of a hyperinflation is an economy that's starting to pick up, really pick up. Consumer spending is picking up. Consumer confidence is picking up. The velocity of money is picking up. And first you see inflation. That's the first signs of a hyperinflation. And this is what's coming, guys. And nobody else out there, none of these other channels are telling you this. That what we're heading toward is an economic recovery. We're going to see the Fed come in and they're going to pour money on this next crisis. This is the start of this next recession. They're going to try to pull us out of the recession. And when they do that, they're going to stimulate the economy. That's when we're in danger. That's the danger signal for our hyperinflation. Because that overstimulated economy is going to start to perk up and pick up. This almost happened back in 2008. They came into the rescue, they stimulated the economy, but the deflationary event of 2008 was so severe that it sucked up most of that liquidity. And they brought us out of the crisis, but they didn't stimulate us into a hyperinflation. They brought us up to the point of a level area and then they kept us there for the last 10 years, and we're still in that level spot, basically. They've been keeping us there. But we're getting ready to take a dip. And when we take that sudden dip, they're going to come in and have to stimulate it again. And when they stimulate it again, that's when we're going to get our economic recovery. And that economic recovery is going to lead to inflation, profoundly bad inflation. And that inflation is going to get worse and worse, and it's going to start to run away on the Fed. Because they can always stop deflation. That's what's coming, is a slight period of deflation. But they can always stop deflation. Ben Bernanke said it best, and it's why he got named Helicopter Ben. He said, to stop deflation, if we have to, we will fly over in a helicopter and drop $100 bills out the window to end it. Right? They can always end it by creating money. That's the tool that they have. But when we get inflation and it starts to run away, they can't do anything to stop it at that point. There's no tools in their kit bag to stop hyperinflation. Because if they try to print more money, which is the biggest tool that they have, they only heat it up and make it worse. It's something similar to firefighters, you know. Firefighters have to fight different kinds of fire. And some kinds of fire is great to put water on it. You know? But if they get an electrical fire, you don't put water on an electrical fire. You do not put water on a grease fire. It'll explode in your face. Hyperinflation is like that. The liquidity is like water that the Fed's got. They can put out all of these normal kinds of fires that are deflationary. But when it comes to a hyperinflation, if they try to put the water on it or the money or the liquidity, all they do is make it flare up and explode. This is simple. They can't fight runaway inflation. Because the money that they need for a hyperinflation already exists. It's sitting in accounts. It's not moving. And this is why the velocity of money is so slow and been so slow for such a long period of time. This crisis that's coming has been building up within the system for a long time, and it's going to release quickly when it releases. Snap. And then we're going to start moving toward our hyperinflation. And it's going to take a little while to get us to the hyperinflation. It's not going to set in immediately. But the hyperinflation is going to be the driving force. And the inflation that comes first before the hyperinflation is going to be the driving force for 3 asset classes. So you guys that are depressed today because the silver price dropped, the silver price and gold price dropped today because we are heading toward deflation. And the Fed doesn't know what to do. The next thing that's going to drop is going to be the market. It's going to drop once those bond rates get up high enough. And believe me, today they climbed a big jump today, like 4 basis points today. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.